A jam-packed show for you today. Keith Smith is here, and we're going to talk about the Ja Morant trade, a soon-to-be maybe Kawhi Leonard trade, the latest on Jaylen Brown and LeBron James. Then we're going to run through the transaction log and answer some big-picture questions about the offseason before previewing the top free agents that are still on the market. Let's jump in. All right, Keith Smith is here. You know him from Spotrac, the front office show, sports business classroom, and we got a ton to dig into today. We're going to talk about some of the biggest news of the offseason. Then later on, we're going to talk about his list of the top 50 free agents in the NBA. But let's start with some of the transaction stuff from the last couple of days, Keith. The big one, Ja Morant finally gets traded. Portland gets Ja Morant, and all they trade is Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. No picks moving the deal. And my first thought, Keith, I don't know about you, was, boy, this really feels like the Trae Young trade from the trade deadline where it was basically matching salary, and that was really it. No draft picks were moved in the Trae Young deal. No draft picks moved in this Ja Morant deal. For guys who were so important for their respective franchises at one point, for them to get moved like this, maybe it says something about the players themselves. We obviously know about Ja Morant's history off the court and things like that, and some of the issues that Memphis had and what the Grizzlies were just sort of going through as a team, going through a general reset. And so they didn't have a ton of leverage here. But also, Ja Morant, Trae Young, both of these guys, smaller guards. And so I just wonder, and I'll throw it to you here, do you think this says more about the market of small guards who were at, even big name small guards? Or is this just sort of, am I reading too much into it? Is this more of a reflection of just where the Hawks were at the time and where the Memphis Grizzlies were at just now?
Yeah, I think small guards combined with big contracts is what we saw happen here. And that's where I think both of these guys got essentially squeezed, I guess is the best way to put it, in the trade market. Normally we talk about that in the free agent market, but they were both in positions where clearly it was time for a change, and more so with Morant than Young, but we got there with Trae Young too. And then it became, all right, what are we going to do? And the Grizzlies tried really hard at the trade deadline to trade Ja Morant. Couldn't find a deal. And they said, we'll find something over the summer. And they did. And no, I can't imagine anybody woke up this morning, fired up Grizzlies.com and ordered a Jeremy Grant or Chris Murray jersey. And for Grizzlies fans, I'm sure there's a lot of sadness this morning, but there's got to be at least some relief of, well, it's over. And now we can just move on to whatever our next iteration is, built around Cam Boozer and Zach Edey and Cedric Coward and 900 million other young players that they've acquired and all the draft capital. But yeah, this was a weird trade. I don't understand it from Portland's side that this is where you're kind of investing your money and your trade pieces on the outgoing side. Maybe they looked at it and said, well, the value just could be too good to pass up if we can get Ja Morant right. But now they've got a million guards. I'm not sure how they're going to play everybody. It's just a weird roster that's left in the wake. And I realize free agency is just opening, soon. So it'll be still plenty of time to rework that. But yeah, definitely an odd trade.
It felt to me like almost the Grizzlies opened up the trade machine on Spotrac and just tried to find matching salaries that worked and just started calling around the league like, hey, would you take Ja Morant for a Jeremy Grant based package? And can we find some way to make the money work here? And maybe Portland was just like, yeah, I guess, man. Like, if you're going to take Jeremy Grant off our hands, we don't really care about Chris Murray. Like, you can have him. And, if you're Tom Dundon, you get a chance at a big name. And it's certainly a buy low proposition, right? If you're Portland and you're looking sort of for a face of the franchise, I would argue maybe you already had it in Denny Avdia. You still have Damian Lillard coming back, so it's not like you were missing the market in Portland. It might have just, like you said, let's talk about the fit, the basketball fit, because look, Ja Morant and Damian Lillard is slated to be now the starting backcourt there with Denny Avdia. They still have Donovan Clingan there at the 5, Tamani Kamara. Like they've got dudes, right? And we'll see what they end up doing with Drew Holiday. I think this says a lot about maybe their lack of belief in Scoot Henderson, which we could talk about here in a second, I think. But for a Portland team that made the playoffs this year, it's a strange move because we're doing this again. Like I can't help but think, you went through the entire Damian Lillard era, pairing him with a small guard in the backcourt with CJ McCollum, and now it's a very different Damian Lillard. It's a very different era in Portland, but we're kind of just doing this again. Like what happened? Did Damian Lillard ever get traded? It just kind of feels like we're back to where we were at square one with Portland and Damian Lillard.
Yeah, it really does, except Drew Holiday is somehow still there. And like you said, they're telling teams we're going to keep him. Well, I
I don't
can't
buy it.
imagine Drew Holiday is super excited to be the third guard in a three-guard rotation. Not to mention Shaden Sharp is there
Yep.
on a new extension kicking in, that he's a shooting guard. You mentioned Scoot Henderson. I gotta believe they're gonna trade Scoot Henderson now, get him somewhere to a team that maybe has interest in extending him, because you can't extend him if you're Portland. I mean, that's five guys that all Sharp's a true shooting guard, but the other four can all play point guard. And it's a little weird to build a team that way. And you're absolutely right. Like this idea of, oh, we're just going to run it back with Morant as a much more athletic version of CJ McCollum. And I guess in some ways now Dame's going to be the CJ and Morant will be what Dame was, maybe, except he can't shoot. So that's weird. I don't know how they're going to stop anybody. I fully understand now why they're telling everybody, hey, we can't trade Donovan Clingan, because they need him to clean up all the mess from the perimeter guys. So I'm really not sure how this is all going to come together for Portland. I hope there's some bigger plan that we're not seeing yet, because the one guy I didn't even mention in there is Denny Avdia, who in my mind is much more of a small forward, but he's a small forward who's an on-ball guy and has the ball a lot. So I really don't know how this is going to work out. This maybe again, it was just, hey, the price is so low, we're not really doing anything to our long-term picture cap sheet wise, because let's face it, Jeremy Grant's not opting out next year. So we're still about where we would have been anyway. So let's just roll the dice and see what this looks like. But yeah, for a team that had really nice upward trajectory, and you're already adding Damian Lillard and all the feel good stuff that's going to come with that next year, now it just feels like this was the one more move on top that I don't know needed to be made.
If I were to strain my voice any further to try to talk myself into this deal for Portland, I guess if I squint, I can be like, well, we're going to lean into transition. We're going to be a full court team between Denny and Ja and some of these other pieces that we have. Damian Lillard as a trail three guy. We can really do some damage in transition, which was where Portland was at their most damaging last year. And so, okay, let's just double down on that strength is kind of what we're doing. Major half court concerns in terms of spacing, who gets the ball, but we could stagger Ja Morant and Denny Avdia. Again, if I'm trying to talk myself into it, it's Clingan, Kamara, some of these other guys. If we hold on to Drew, we have some really high level defenders in this group, maybe enough to counteract things. We needed to get better offensively, and yeah, maybe Ja Morant isn't the perfect fit, but it was such great value. And we're the Portland Trailblazers. We tried to get Giannis. He basically told us no. The Jaylen Brown cost is probably too high for us. And so, looking around the market, let's just make a move. Get a guy who's super talented to try to juice an offense, even if it means sacrificing a little bit defensively, because we saw how far that got us last year.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think this is. I think this is the buy low of lowest of buy low opportunities. Yes, me as writer, good use of the English language there. But it really is I guess that's what this is. This is let's buy low, let's see what it looks like. I mean, there is a world too where maybe Damian Lillard, we haven't seen him play in a year. So we don't even know. Maybe Dame isn't going to be what we think he is. And if that's the case, then okay. Now, my big thing is I want to reserve full judgment on this until we see what is next.
Yeah.
But at some point, you do have to kind of look at it as on its face. This is what it is, because maybe the next thing never comes. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting trade. And on the Memphis side, because I feel like no one's really talking about that.
One last note on Portland.
Just
for Denny and Ja, because the point you make about Damian Lillard is such a good one. No matter what, the spacing is going to be there, at least for the first half of the season. If Damian Lillard is just a shell of themselves, teams will eventually catch up. But Denny and Ja have never played with a floor spacer like Damian Lillard. So just maybe a little interesting thing to see how that works. But go ahead in the Memphis side.
Well, sorry, now I'm going to add one more Portland thing.
Right, let's do it.
If we slot Tamani Kamara down to being the fourth option, boy, that's a pretty good fourth option. You start feeling a lot better than at times where he was the second or even third or sometimes even second option. in Portland. So there's good. Yeah. And on the Memphis side, other than we're finally done with the Ja era. It's over. It's behind us. Well, knew it was coming. It's over. They're just collecting guys. Like, I mean, maybe they'll, where they don't have players, a lot of guys is at like the 4. I'm outside of Cam Boozer, but Jeremy Grant, even in Portland, when it was like, Portland looks like they're going to be really young, and he was seen even in Detroit as well, seen as a good veteran guy who can try to help the young guys do some stuff. He'll help Boozer's transition to the NBA in a big way, and then I think they'll be in a pretty good place with that. So I think this is one for Memphis where it's just we're going to continue collecting. But boy, you look at that roster; they don't even have roster spots for everybody. So there's going to be guys getting waived there, and probably some more trades to come. They still have that giant Jaren Jackson Jr. trade exception. Like there's still a lot of stuff that the Grizzlies can do here. So I'm very curious to see in the end how this all gets pieced together for them.
Agree 100%. No notes. They do not feel finished at all. And there's even an opportunity maybe for this trade to get expanded a little bit if they want, but it definitely feels
it's done. It's official.
You're right. It is official.
Yeah.
It's official this morning.
Yeah,
you're right.
And the reason why, just without boring everybody to tears with super deep cap minutia here, if they'd waited to do it in the next year, Ja Morant could have got his full trade bonus. It would have pushed his salary way up. And because this year he's already above the max salary for his years of service, he doesn't get his trade bonus. So that's a big reason why this was pushed through already.
Let's talk about Jaylen Brown a little bit, because I think he's another one of the big stories right now. And the Boston Celtics, they offer him for Giannis. And, okay, now it feels a little bit like they're doing mop-up duty on everything about... It felt like they were kind of doing it ahead of the Giannis trade. Like, we haven't necessarily included Jaylen Brown in a Giannis deal, but everybody knew, like, if you're trying to trade for Giannis, Jaylen Brown has to be part of that deal. But it already felt like they were trying to toe the line of not quite offering him, but seeing if they could get Giannis for Jaylen Brown. They go down the road. They don't pull off the deal. Milwaukee ultimately takes the Heat package. And one of the reasons I think they took the Heat package is because, hey, here's just the outlay of picks and young things and young players and just things that you can start your rebuild with. And the Jaylen Brown package was a Jaylen Brown package. It was basically Jaylen Brown and a couple of picks, and that was it. I think Milwaukee rightly looked at it and said, Jaylen Brown's an awesome player, but we're kind of just right back to where we were with Jaylen Brown instead of Giannis if we make this deal, and we have really no means to build around Jaylen Brown, just like we have no means to build around Giannis. So ultimately, they take the choose your own adventure package with the Miami Heat, and they say no, as hard as it was, and I think it probably was hard for them to say no to a guy like Jaylen Brown. But the reason I always thought that the Heat package made more sense was because as much as people would say, hey, just flip Jaylen Brown for more assets, you could probably get better assets for Jaylen Brown than you would from the Miami Heat. Theoretically, okay, maybe that's true, but wouldn't they have just done that? Like, wouldn't that have just been the trade? Like, why would you wait to flip Jaylen Brown? And the entire time I was saying, like, all right, like, we can all say that you could flip Jaylen Brown for the 5th pick for the Clippers or the 8th pick from Atlanta, but until they actually offer those picks for Jaylen Brown, you can't assume that those teams are going to give. And ultimately, we saw those teams not want to do that for Jaylen Brown. And I get Jaylen Brown's an awesome player, but he's 29. He's really expensive. And teams that are picking in the top 10 probably want to stay young and cheap, right? Generally speaking. And so now I think we're seeing the concern with Jaylen Brown. Awesome basketball player. Regardless of what the analytics say about him, awesome basketball player. But it's just really hard to trade for a guy making that much money. As we saw with Giannis, as we've seen with a lot of other players, sometimes the cap figure is just so high that it just ends up not making sense for a lot of teams. And so what do you think about this Jaylen Brown trade market and where the Boston Celtics are with him?
Yeah, I think if you're the Celtics, now, not saying you just got to take any deal that's out there, because that would be crazy. But you have to be really conscious of trying to find a Jaylen Brown trade now. I think now we're too far down the road to just bring everything back and be where it is. I mean, whoever gets Jaylen Brown plays at his best when he has a gigantic chip on his shoulder, which some people argue is there all the time. But in the wake of winning the title and winning finals MVP, I think Jaylen Brown came back the next year is like, all right, I'm established now, and here we are. And then that next year went the way it went. The team was okay, and then Tatum got hurt, and they were going to lose that series to the Knicks anyway. And then last year he came in with this huge chip on his shoulder of, all right, I got to lead this team, and everybody says we're going to stink, and I'm not going to make sure we don't stink. So let's get this done. So you kind of get that going on, and now going into next season, it's going to be, all right, you tried to trade me, and nobody thinks I'm worth X, Y, and Z. Like, let me show you what I can do. That can go one of two ways. It could go really well, or that could go like he's pressing, he's forcing, and things don't go good. But from the Celtics standpoint is they're trying to thread a really, really difficult needle here because it sounds like that they're asking for big returns in terms of draft picks and or young players, but also win now players too, because they're not rebuilding. They're not Milwaukee, right? Where Milwaukee is like, all right, we're probably kicking off a rebuild if we trade Giannis. Now they clearly are. So we're going to start over. For the Celtics, it is, hey, we still have Tatum, we still have Derek White, we still have Peyton Pritchard, still got this team that's pretty good. Let's see where we can go. So they want to turn Brown into win now players, and that's just tough because if you're a team acquiring Jaylen Brown, presumably you're trying to win now as well. So you got to find a team that is maybe trading from a position of strength. Maybe they have enough big men where they can move a big. Maybe they've got too many wings and they're trying to consolidate or something like that. And that's going to be what Boston's looking at now. I will say this. It's a really good front office in Boston. I think they're being painted a little too much as well. Now they're stuck because they didn't anticipate any of this. I don't think they went into it with, we will trade for Giannis, and no, that didn't happen. Now we have no other plan. Like they kind of know where things are at, but other teams also know that too. So it's going to be hard to, it's now you're trying to kind of extract blood from a stone, and I just don't know how much blood that those stones are going to have out there that they're willing to give up to Boston.
This brings us to a segment called Intrusive Thoughts. Number one, this is less of an intrusive thought, but I still don't buy that the Celtics have to trade Jaylen Brown. Sure. Like just he's under contract. Yep. Bring him back. Like what is he going to do? Not play? And if he does, he's going to play well. The guy is extremely prideful. Like you nailed it when you said guy plays well with a chip on his shoulder. If he's pissed off at his own team, look out, other teams, right? Like if I'm the Celtics, I'm not trading him for something that makes me worse. I'm not doing it. Now, if I could trade Jaylen Brown and get like a bunch of pieces to flesh out some of the rotation and the depth that we lost over the last couple of years, which I think is starting to eat away at the Celtics in a way that I think is troubling and you need to address. Maybe you get worse at a position, but you gain strength in numbers here. And I think you could talk yourself into it. And that brings me to the intrusive thoughts because, okay, let's say you can't trade Jaylen Brown. Intrusive thought number one, I have two. What if you traded Jayson Tatum instead? I know they won't. Yeah. But what if you did? Right? Like, he's the one with the injury history, not Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, finals MVP, conference finals MVP, MVP votes last year. The resume says he's as good as Jayson Tatum. Now, you and I watch basketball. We know that that's not true. But you won 55-plus games last year, top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference last year, with Jaylen Brown basically leading the way the entire time. Would it be crazy to consider the idea of if we actually trade Tatum and now we show Jaylen Brown, we picked you over Tatum. Of all this stuff, you thought we were picking Tatum over you this whole time. Now you have your own team. It's us. You can continue your history in Boston, all this stuff. And now we're moving Tatum and getting a ton back for Tatum. We could build out the best, most robust rotation around you, Jaylen Brown, that you can ever imagine. That's intrusive thought number one. I'll wait until I get to I'll wait for intrusive thought number two. But your thoughts on my my intrusive thought number one.
Here's my worry: if they went down that path, then what happens when Jaylen Brown is like, "Yeah, that's cool. I don't want to be here." Right? Like now Tatum's not here, and you already have tried to trade me. Why am I going to believe you're not going to try to trade me? Still, like, get me out of here. Now all of a sudden the franchise is in shambles, and they're rebuilding in a way.
When's the extension eligible?
Brown?
Yeah.
This summer.
So then you do it all. You just, here's the massive extension. We're trading Tatum with your buy-in.
I don't know. Because if I'm Jaylen Brown, it's like, hey, you called it, right? I still have multiple years left on my contract. So if you trade me, I'll just wait until I'm eligible with that team to extend for all this big money. That would be my worry. My big worry would be then Brown turns around, and whether it's immediate or it's a year or two in, and he's just like, well, this stinks. Like, this is not what I wanted to be. Because the one thing, as much as people are like, why is Jayson Tatum not going on Brown's, whatever it is, Twitch stream? And why is, Brown didn't speak once about Tatum last year. I can't wait till I get my brother back and everything. But yet we see on social media, Jaylen Brown's like babysitting Tatum's kids and stuff. Like, it's just people want to people have this desire to be like, these guys must hate each other. And it's like, I think when NBA players hate each other, we generally know, because you know why? They tell us. They've never hesitated to tell us, like, I don't really like these guys. Like, these two guys have been pretty locked in. Do I think they are spending every night having sleepovers and like hanging out on the phone until 2 a.m? No, probably not. I think these guys are, but I think they're as friendly as teammates can be, who've been together for a long time and have been through a lot together, or similarly aged guys, where they definitely have different interests. Jayson Tatum, when's the last thing you heard anything about Jayson Tatum off the court? Let me know the next time, other than.
Well, and I think that's why people are placing this. It was like when Friends was going on. Everybody wanted to know if like the cast of Friends were actually friends off the set. And it's like, no, they work together. But they play really well in their parts together on set.
Yeah.
And so that was, but because we have so little information about who Jayson Tatum and frankly even Jaylen Brown is outside of basketball and his Twitch stream, like we still bring up the chess club thing with him, and like that's like 20 years ago.
And that stuff I think is like, because I saw that circulating, like when he was drafted, there were people like, is this guy too smart for the NBA? And I think it's been proven that Jaylen Brown can be a pretty smart guy and play in the NBA. I think we should be well past that now. I think with Brown, we know he's very involved in the community. He's very involved in a lot of various social issues and that. Tatum, it's not that Tatum isn't involved in the community, because we see him doing community events and he has his own foundation, charity, camps, all the stuff that every player has. But Jayson Tatum is just, he's a guy who it's like, they came in very different ways, right? They came in at the same age, but Tatum came in already with a kid. And like his priorities were do my work, get home, be with my son. Now he's got another kid. So you're just not going to see a whole lot with him, where Jaylen Brown is, he doesn't have that yet, at least. So Jaylen Brown is like, he's at this event, he's at that event. Right now he's traveling all around the world doing stuff and all that. So I just think it's, I am like so far past the Brown versus Tatum stuff that it's like, that's not even a thing.
Yeah. We're just trying to fill the void with something interesting there. Right. Like,
there just isn't.
Tatum and Brown are just, and I know Brown is a lot more outspoken than Tatum. I find what they say, I don't even mean this as a negative. I just find them so desperately uninteresting when they speak, unless it's about basketball, that I think people try to make it interesting, and a really easy way for the internet to make something interesting is to make it bad. And so it's just, to your point. Yeah.
The last thing I'll say on this too is I do think there is stuff to Jaylen Brown. I had my own team. Like, this was great. And I don't even fault him for that, because I think there is, within every great player, there is those guys want to prove I can do it, right? And I think we talked about a chip on his shoulder. I think Jaylen Brown approached last season as, cool, everybody thinks we're going to stink, at least relative to what we have been. I am going to show you we are not. And I'm going to lead this group. And I know there are a million stats that show even last year they weren't as good with them on the court as they were with them off the court. And I think, to me, there's a lot of noise in that, where that becomes, well, why, right? Why is that a thing? Well, is that partially a thing because it's Brown's always out there against the starting groups and he's never in there against the reserve heavy lineups? Like, what does that tell you? What do we need to look at? But that's, all those things. But yeah, it's just a weird place. And I think, for the Celtics, the big thing you hit on is they have bled talent. And this is what's going to happen with second apron teams. You're going to build up, you're going to have the team together, then you're going to bleed a little bit of talent. Then eventually you're going to get to the point where, what we got to do, we got to take one of the max guys. We got to take his $60 million contract. We're going to break that up into 2, 3, 4 players. So that way we can replenish our depth around the other guys. And then if a year or two down the line, it is, all right, now we take 2 of those $20 million guys and go get a $40 million guy. And that's going to be how you're going to have to do the build up. the comeback. I'm not even going to say tear down, but just
No, it's like a cycle through, right?
Go. Yeah, you're just going to have to keep doing that. It's we're already seeing it come, for the Thunder to some extent. They've bled off some of their talent because that's where you're going to go as long as you're, until some team comes along, and it probably will happen eventually, and says, second apron be damned, we'll pay every dollar and we'll just stay over this thing and freeze every one of our picks, move them all to the first round. We don't care. It is what it is. Like, that may happen if a team hits on the exact right mix of talent. But until then, yeah, we're going to see a lot of things like this play out.
Intrusive thought number 2. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because it is admittedly crazy. I just want to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the craziest, how crazy this is. What if we just solve 2 teams' problems? LeBron to the Celtics, Jaylen Brown to the Lakers.
Yeah, that's 10 on the level of crazy. Just because I honestly think LeBron might retire before playing for the Celtics. I don't think a lot of NBA players hate teams the way like fans want them to.
Right.
But I kind of think LeBron hates the Celtics.
Good.
And I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm glad to hear it. I do want to try something different with a new segment, and then we're going to get to our transaction vlog on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. Okay, so this is a new segment that I'm calling a segment from the future. We are recording this at exactly right now, 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm going to check my alerts really quick. No, Kawhi Leonard has not yet been traded, but it sounds like it could be any moment now that Kawhi could get traded to the Toronto Raptors. So here's what we're going to do. In an attempt to make this podcast as evergreen as possible and up to date as possible, this is our segment from the future where Kawhi Leonard has already been traded to the Toronto Raptors. And I'll even tell you what the compensation is, Keith. It's going to be for Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick and then some other things that are immaterial to this conversation because we don't know what they are. But that's going to, whatever those things are, draft picks, other assets, young players, whatever, to get the deal over the hump, that's in there. So Kawhi Leonard, Toronto Raptors, breaking news, Keith. What do you think?
I love it. If that's what the package is, I'm thrilled with that. It's Grady Dick is just truly salary throw-in.
Yeah.
He's not, his future with the Raptors is over no matter what happens, with or without a Kawhi trade. That's done. Kawhi is a better player than Brandon Ingram, and if you're the Raptors, you need to take big swings. If you're going to get to where you need to be next, it's there. I salivate at the thought of a lineup that features Scotty Barnes, Kawhi Leonard, Jamal Shed, RJ Barrett with Jakob Poeltl behind them to just kind of clean up. If anything can get through that
and Colin Murray Boyles.
Quartet. Like, yeah, Colin Murray Boyles, you throw him in there somewhere too as well. Like, that is like, good luck scoring on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a perfect fit? No, not really, but it's a pretty good one. Kawhi gives you everything Brandon Ingram would, plus, and he's a better three-point shooter than Brandon Ingram is because he's just a more willing to take those shots more often. With that, that would be home run for the Raptors to get Kawhi Leonard.
One of the things that I'm thinking about a lot this summer are teams with high floors and teams with high ceilings. And the Raptors are a team with a really high floor, and their ceiling is kind of on the floor. Like, they are just, they are what they are. And to me, that was a very fun watch last year. On League Pass, I always just knew what a Toronto Raptors game was going to look like and the kind of effort that they were going to play with. And, maybe it was a different player popping off each night, but the system was built for that to happen, right? And so there wasn't a really true number one option there, although they are building around Scotty Barnes. I don't think he projects as like a number one scoring option on a title team as good as he is. Kawhi Leonard is obviously that player. And if you have an opportunity for Toronto our floor is here, you can pluck Brandon Ingram off this team. I don't think it changes the floor because Brandon Ingram was the ceiling raiser guy. Well, if we could just improve the ceiling raiser guy spot from Brandon Ingram to Kawhi Leonard, why would we not do that? As long as the cost is not extremely prohibitive. So this to me makes a ton of sense. I love it from like a front office management, roster management point of view. I also love it because of the history and what it means. You can make the argument that Kawhi should have never left Toronto. And the fact that now we're getting reports, and there's a lot of reasons for this that, whatever. The fact that he is at least now open to signing an extension with Toronto, where he never was after even winning a championship open to signing a new contract with Toronto. The fact that we kind of came full circle and now we're here, a little sad on the Kawhi part, but really fun for I think everybody else involved. I was walking around the other day on my way to pick up my daughter from daycare, and I'm like, I kind of went through this mental exercise on my 11-minute walk of how would the league have changed if Kawhi never left Toronto, right? Like you could talk about what it meant for Oklahoma City because they probably never moved Paul George to the Clippers, and so they don't become this juggernaut. Do the Raptors win another championship with Kawhi in Toronto? Like that roster was really good. And you just took Kawhi off of it and got nothing for it because he left in free agency. I went down that rabbit hole, Keith.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of what ifs within that for multiple teams, franchises, all kinds of things there. Like I'll never forget the night we found out Kawhi was going. I happened to be with Chris Haynes at Summer League. We were hanging out talking. That was earlier that night. Zion had ragdolled Kevin Knox on a rebound and threw down a dunk that like blew the roof off the arena. Almost.
Literally caused an earthquake.
Yeah. Then we have an earthquake. I'm, East Coast guy. I lived in the West Coast for a little bit of time. So earthquakes don't register for me. Chris, who's a West Coast guy, looks up and is like, we got to go, and literally just starts throwing my stuff in my backpack. And is like, we got to get out of the building. Curry, get out. So I'm like, oh crap. If he's saying we got to go, we got to go. Then we are in the Uber on the way back to the hotel. And it's so funny. Our Uber driver is like, I don't know, man. I'm hearing Kawhi to the Clippers. Like, is that going to be a thing? Like, I'm hearing that. Is that where it's going to be? And Chris is like, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. And then, like, I think it was 25 minutes after we get Kawhi to the Clippers. Paul George is also going to the Clippers. Just what a wild night that was there. Little
Didn't
trip
Haynes
down
break
memory
that?
lane. I think he was first on the Kawhi part because he was all over that situation because I think he had reached out.
So you were in the Uber right before he broke the news, basically. Haynes broke it.
Well, it was funny because I texted him as it was all going down. I'm like, the Uber driver knew. How did he know? And like we were both laughing about it. But yeah, it was crazy. It was one of those wild nights.
Did it happen?
No, it was something else, much more minor. I was waiting for this to be like, oh look, you spoke it into existence. Here, but yeah, I mean, the full circle nature of this would be pretty cool. I mean, kind of full circle. I know San Antonio would be full circle, but going back to Toronto, that would be super cool there. And then for the Clippers, this would be a chance to basically say, all right, we're washing our hands of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all behind us, and the whole. Who knows what happens punishment wise? That'll all come, I don't know, at some point like that. We do that as the look into the future segment of, we might be another 5 more years the way this.
Oh, this would be the best. Out. This would be the best case scenario for the NBA because then you just send Kawhi to Toronto, which is a team nobody cares about, and it was just like what aspiration thing. Like no, there was no like it's fine. The investigation.
Yeah, he's not on the Clippers. Why is this a problem?
Yeah, nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm being facetious, by the way, Toronto Raptors fans. I just said how much I watched you on League Pass last year.
Yeah, I was gonna say you better be careful there, man. They'll come for your head. Those Raptors fans are
that's the point.
Which is
but
a compliment.
They still have love for Kawhi, unlike the people in San Antonio, which was the Spurs thing never made sense to me. They're like, dude, absolutely not. You don't even come back to Texas. Whereas,
well, what it is with Toronto, flags fly forever, right? Like
exactly,
you won a
100%.
title, and it wasn't a bad breakup. It wasn't like he trashed the city on the way out. They were like, hey, we took our chance, and it paid off as good as it possibly
and
can.
everybody knew what it was.
And
it was a summer fling where it's like, hey, we're both at summer camp. We know that there's no future here, but let's just have fun for a while.
Yep.
And that was it. New segment called the Transaction Vlog. Where we're going to run through a bunch of transaction news and then talk about some of the big picture ramifications of those things. I want to start with the New York Knicks, defending champs. They reportedly plan to sign Landry Shamet to a 4-year, $24 million contract. They already agreed to a new deal with Jose Alvarado. There's some ramifications for what this means for Mitchell Robinson, as the Knicks I know are right up against it now with the second apron. But your thoughts on some of the Knicks moves early on here?
Yeah, I think it's being a little overdone with bringing back Shamet means Robinson is leaving. Robinson was never coming back for that small of a salary, and that's about as big of a salary with room to fill out the rosters they could give. So I think they took care of the one guy that they could take care of. Now, I'm going to be very clear about this for the umpteenth time. There is nothing rules, restrictions wise, preventing the Knicks from re-signing Mitchell Robinson and blowing past the second apron. They can do that. They're not hard capped. They've done nothing to even hit that level. They're just simply choosing not to, which for me is a massive mistake. Go into the second apron, at least to start the year. If it all is falling apart and it's like, man, we're not good like we were a year ago, and it's just we got to do something different, then you do something different to maybe clear that up. Or you know what? You do what a lot of other teams have done. You pay the price of being a second apron team for a year, take the frozen pick 7 years from now and let it play out and go, and you keep Mitchell Robinson. But it doesn't sound like that's going to be how it goes.
So Mitchell Robinson played 60 games last year, was tremendously important for them for big stretches of the season. Did not have a great NBA Finals. Wasn't nearly as impactful in the finals that I thought he would be based on how he played against the Spurs in the NBA Cup Finals. But, prior to last year, where he was really healthy, 17 games, 31 games, 59 games. If you don't want to bring back Mitchell Robinson, with the prohibitive cost of going to the second apron and everything that means, I kind of understand it. But you better replace him, right? Like, if you want to go out and replace, you go replace him with somebody who, okay, maybe is cheaper, but is available and is reliable, right? Like, when Karl-Anthony Towns is off the court, this gives us something. Mitchell Robinson is so important for what they do defensively, incredibly important on the offensive glass. You're not going to replace that stuff like for like, but if you can go out and get an Andre Drummond, who's just a little bit more available, maybe a little bit cheaper, like that, at least you start to keep the same shape of stuff. But I'm going to wait to hold judgment on what it is that the Knicks do, but you are 100% right. You just won the championship. You are the New York freaking Knicks, dude. Like, if there's a team that can afford to go into the second apron for a year, it's James Dolan and this Knicks team that just had this huge windfall of money. Who knows how much money they made on this finals run? I mean, come on. Like, so you have Wes, the money to spend on it.
Let me pause there to interrupt you real quick. I'm fortunate to have a couple people in my life who work for Fanatics. They said that they sold more Knicks championship gear like in the first 24 hours after they won the title than the Thunder or the Celtics combined. Now, the Thunder are a small market, so we get that. Celtics are not. They are people buying it, but it was Celtics fans might have been like, well, we've won a championship in my lifetime, so like I'm not going to go hog wild here. Most Knicks fans did not see a title in their lifetime unless they're much, much older. So they went absolutely crazy here buying stuff. So in a big chunk of that, yes, some of that goes to the league, some of that goes to the players, but a big chunk of that goes to the Knicks. And for the Knicks, it's like, I don't want to hear any financial reason why they can't do it. If it is truly, we do not want the basketball restrictions that come with it. Okay, before other reasons you laid out, I'm there, but you better have a pretty good plan to get a backup center in there on the minimum. Otherwise, good luck. Like, I don't know what you're going to do, because let's not act like Karl-Anthony Towns is always the healthiest big man walking around either. He occasionally does miss some time, and you want to be able to, at this point, continue to lessen the load on some of these guys. This is what's hard, and I know it feels like they breezed to the title because in some respects they did, but the Celtics breezed to that title too. And the next year, you could still see the hangover on some of their guys. When you play into June, it's just tough. I always say with title teams, you don't climb Everest, come back down and say, you know what, let's go right back up, right? Nobody does that. If you go back up, it takes you a whole other year to prepare and build back up to do that climb again. And that's where we're at with the Knicks now. And that means you got to add some front court depth to this team.
If they make their roster worse because of money, then let's cut the crap, NBA, call it a hard cap. We're done here.
Yep.
Like,
inexcusable.
That's inexcusable. It would be inexcusable. Andrew Wiggins picks up his $30 million option, then extends off of it $34 million, 2 years, player option in the final year of that extension. I've talked a lot about this on Locked On Heat already. I think it's a really interesting way to frame this contract. You get a team-friendly 2 years potentially here on the back half of it. Wiggins gets to cash in on the $30 million right away. I think it says a lot about what the Heat are planning to do with their team this summer, though. And the idea of Wiggins opting out and taking more years with less annual value, that was floated out here locally, maybe to try to bring Norm Powell back. But I do wonder if maybe the Heat have already decided, you know what, we're probably ready. We're probably okay moving on from Norm Powell, and we would much prefer to keep Wiggins here and keep Wiggins happy.
Yeah, I think this is a case of Miami saying Norman Powell is not coming back for a 1-year deal because we can't make it big enough to do the 1-year balloon payment kind of contract because of what they're going to be facing with very likely a first apron hard cap. Mm-hmm. So what I think the Heat are looking at here is, all right, this year we'll cobble it together. We'll figure it out. There's enough also internal excitement around having Giannis on the team. Like that's going to give us a boost where we'll be in a better place anyway. But the next couple of years, I think they're looking at that. That's when we have to be able to put a better team, a title contender around these two guys. Not that they're punting on this year. That's not what I'm saying. But I think they're thinking, well, we can piece it together a little bit here. While you were talking, news broke that they're going to bring back Samani Fontecchio, which I think is kind of a must because you need shooting. You need some shooting with some size. So I think that's a helpful, re-sign for the Heat. So I think that's where it is. I think for Wiggins, good work here. Wasn't going to get $30 million a year anywhere. I know a lot of people say, well, just do it at $20 million a year each year. But I think they want that extra flexibility in the 2 years to come after this. And that's why they're doing it the way they're doing it. And I don't have a huge problem with that.
Yeah. I just think it makes a lot of sense. Wiggins, to me, if you had to pick Powell or Wiggins, Wiggins always made more sense. Powell, 33 years old. I think you can find versions of what Powell does on the open market. And we'll see what they do. They're still gonna have a portion of the mid-level exception available to try to fill in the rest of the roster. The Fontecchio news is that's probably a minimum contract that he's coming back on. So the Warriors have been active, and again, we might have been better off shoehorning them into the future segment also. But Draymond Green, he declines a $27.7 million player option. They've already brought back Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford on 2-year deals. But Green opting out, that was a little bit of a surprise, and we got reporting immediately after that they are trying to make moves to essentially trade for Anthony Davis, which would, in their view, at least help lure LeBron James to Golden State. What a fascinating gambit, Keith, here. This is fascinating for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I want them to do it simply so I can unpack the salary cap gymnastics that it'll take to make it happen. Like that's like, we call it over on Front Office Show. We call it now we're riding nerdy. Like I want to go riding nerdy on this because it would be something like that. So I think it's a place where it becomes like, how do you do this? I think the subsequent news of their signing Porzingis probably makes it a lot less likely. I thought it was very funny that Brian Windhorst said, I have people in the league telling me all this was just leaks to get Draymond paid by the Warriors, LeBron paid by the Lakers, and Davis paid by the Wizards. And there could be something to that. I mean, they play the game pretty good there at Clutch. So I think we'll see where this goes. I don't think it's going to play out. Also, too, we keep it outside of the cap stuff. Why do you need Porzingis, Horford, Davis, LeBron, and Draymond Green? That's a whole bunch of dudes that play the 4 and the 5. And I'm not sure you need all those guys. None of those guys are really playing the 3, and that becomes very weird. I saw people say, well, Porzingis' contract looks like he was extended small enough that maybe he could be traded right away. Yeah, but the Wizards aren't going to want him back. Now you're talking about a complicated 3-team trade, and I'm just not sure that's how this all goes down. And honestly, too, I don't know that if Porzingis was agreeing to that to be traded, that news would have broke as part of the whole thing there. So I think is it possible? Yes, it's all still possible. Yossi Goslin did a great job of breaking it down and really painstaking detail how they could pull it off. I just don't think it's very likely. As I like to say, there's a lot of things in the world that are possible, but most of them, they're not going to happen.
Right. I have publicly said I do not want to see LeBron James on the Warriors. I think that would be the lamest way for him to end his career. I don't want to see.
I kind of don't mind it.
It
whatever.
feels a lot like Bird and Magic teaming up on the Lakers. I don't
Why do they have to team up on the Lakers? Why can't they team up on the Celtics? Come on.
because the Lakers are the California team and the
Oh,
Warriors are a
okay.
California team.
Oh, okay. All right.
Um,
All right. I'll give you that.
they were rivals. I don't want to say like this is what Team USA is for. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
this is why you do it. But yeah, it is a fascinating leverage play by Clutch Sports, who I think is maybe the biggest actor in all of this. All right.
They're very good at what they do.
They are very, very good at what they do. The Hawks declined Jonathan Kuminga's $24 million team option. Okay. All right, Kuminga. That's a second team. It didn't work. I really don't want to do any more Kuminga segments, but I find it interesting that every team that gets Kuminga is just like, yeah, we love the talent, but it doesn't work. Now, maybe it doesn't work to the tune of $24 million. I guess there's the option to bring him back on a smaller figure or for another team to go out and sign him. I know the Sacramento Kings have already been reportedly interested in it, but the Hawks, your latest team to move off of Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. You said it perfectly. Don't have a lot to add. There's a ton of talent there. It's just never really come together, and now they're moving on as well. I don't know where he goes next. It's probably gonna have to top out at the non-taxpayer MLE if he's really insistent on getting as much money as he can. Maybe Atlanta put something together, sign and trade wise. That could be a thing, I guess. But yeah, we'll see. I kind of think we are where we are with this one.
Spurs bring back Scotty Barnes, Harrison Barnes, 1 year, $8 million. Julian Champagnie comes back on a nice $45 million contract over 3 years. But what else can they do after making the finals?
Yeah, I think they're in a place where go get more size, and I would like to see them get like somebody who's like a real 4 size guy. They loaded up with bigs at the draft, but they're all more like center type guys, and that you're covered there now with Cornette. Obviously, Wemby can play there. I think John Collins would be a good fit for them. I think Rui Hachimura would be a good fit for them. Guys who can shoot that also bring some size, that can rebound a little bit. I like the idea with Collins had been always prior to this last year with the Clippers, where his rebounding numbers fell off, but I think that was more the lineups he was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
He's always been a guy who cleans the glass quite well. So I think for him, I love the idea of while Wemby's out challenging shots, Collins is back there taking care of the backboard, and he can step out and shoot the ball. He's become a really, really consistently good jump shooter. So I would like him. Hachimura, knockdown 3-point shooter. He's a good fit. Guys like that. Maybe Tobias Harris if he got squeezed. I know they're bringing back Harrison Barnes, but that feels more like he's really good in the locker room when we like him versus somebody who's going to play big minutes.
They have what, a mid-level exception that they can use?
Yeah, they have the full non-taxpayer because they're even with Champagnie. They declined, but they extended him. So that's going to start right now. And that'll bump up to like 13, 14 million. Even with that kicking in right away, they're still miles from the luxury tax. And again, this is not a team that's looking to fill like 7 roster spots. Right. They'll use the non-taxpayer mid-level. Draft picks will come in, and then probably a couple guys on the minimum.
You named the 2 guys that I had at the top of my list for them, Collins, Hachimura. That to me, Collins for the rebounding and the shooting is just a natural fit. I like Hachimura as a guy who can just fit in defensively, a better one-on-one defender than I think Collins is. And then, but either one of them would be great. And I think you sign them both to the full mid-level, and because if you have one other chunky salary that you could potentially move, plus Barnes, now you're getting up to like $20-something million at the trade deadline. If there's a move out there where you can really find a bigger answer at that spot, because I'm with you. I think they need a bigger forward.
And even too, if one of these centers emerges, like Terrace Reed Jr. is like, man, this dude's ready for 20 minutes a night right away. Then maybe you look at, all right, could we plus up salary with Luke Cornette in a trade if we don't need him? Because I think Cornette has proven, even at his number, he's one of the most valuable backup big men in the league who can also spot start for you.
Just a couple more here. Yusuf Nurkic signs a 2-year, $22 million deal with Utah. Is that the Jazz hedging for Walker Kessler?
Yeah, it's twofold. This protects you in case things get sideways with Kessler and you can't bring him back. And Nurkic was really good for them. He was really, really good for them. And I think Nurkic has always been painted as, well, he stinks defensively. He stinks defensively. You're asking him to switch and chase guards around on the perimeter, like 95% of all centers there. So they, I think with Nurkic, they are in a place where this is just a nice contract, 11 million annual value. Like that's a really good contract for a backup center. If because I don't think they really trust Kyle Filipowski to be their like center in a lot of lineups. So if Kessler's either gone or Kessler's hurt, then you have Nurkic behind him now, and Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously he'll slide over and play some at center. But we've all learned over the years, or at least we should have by now. Jaren Jackson Jr. is not a center. Anybody who keeps talking about, well, they'll just slide him to the 5. He's just not. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't grab any rebounds at all. So you like Jaren Jackson Jr. when you got a kind of glass cleaner next to him, and then he could kind of fly around and play as a weak side shot blocker. Let's go. They're in a great position there. So I like this deal for the Jazz quite a bit.
Lakers Marcus Smart declined his player option. Sounds like maybe he's headed to Houston here. DeAndre Ayton picked up his $8 million player option for the Lakers. The Clippers declined Beal, Bogdanovich, Batum. Did pick up Brook Lopez's $9 million. Extended the qualifying offer to Benedict Mathurin. I'm going to skip over the LA teams. I'm going to go straight to Oklahoma.
Yeah, because the LA teams, it's all who knows right now, right? It's all hypothetical stuff.
Yep. That Lopez pickup, though, that feels like maybe they're going to trade him. That's what that feels
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets thrown into a trade with some other salary.
Might have something to do with the Kawhi deal. That already happened, according to our...
in our world. Yeah.
I
like that because there's less work for me to do.
There you go. Oklahoma City picked up Lou Dort's $17 million team option. They declined Kendrick Williams' $7 million option. Twitter alert. Is it anything? Nope. What's the Thunder's plan here? I know that they're up against it with the cap and stuff, but they're going to pick up Dort. We're already getting some rumblings that maybe they're going to work on a trade, which always made more sense to me for them to, if they're going to move off of Dort, would be actually to pick it up and then move him. And I don't know about you. Is this unrelated to some of the Lakers moves? Is it sort of related to Lakers? I like Lou Dort quite a bit for the Lakers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that fit is good too, because I think the Lakers are preparing that they may lose Marcus Smart. So that's essentially you're replacing Smart with Dort. Now you're replacing Smart with Dort with a guy who is, they're probably about equivalent as shooters, to be quite honest. Dort has started to slip. Dort is it is less of a ball handler as well. Now a team with Luke and Reeves doesn't need a ton of ball handling. But again, if somebody goes down, you like having that option for those guys to be out there on the floor. But yeah, I mean, it would make a lot of sense for the Lakers, especially if they're going the cap space route and they're kind of putting it together around Luke and Austin Reeves. If LeBron leaves, or even if LeBron's back, there could be paths to, all right, we're going to bring in Lou Dort and he becomes a smart replacement. And then the nice thing, if you're Lakers at $17.7 million, you're into January and it's like, we don't really need this guy. That's a nice chunk of tradable salary to have on your books to trade later if they go that way. OKC's about 6.8 million over the second apron. So a lot, and that's factoring in the new contract for Hartenstein. We'll see. There's a couple different ways they could structure that. That could come in a little bit less if they go with him on a lower number to start with. So we'll see. But yeah, there's it's funny, they're stuck there, but there's also moves they can make. And if they get off Dort without anything coming back, now they're in a place where they are, just kind of in a really good spot where they're now well under the second apron. They're starting to get close to being under the first apron. But again, the team, it's like they need a ton of flexibility to do a lot because they don't have a lot to do.
Moving off of Dort after 2 years ago when they won the finals just felt like, no way. He's so important to what they do defensively. And then right away, like last year, you can already see them starting to move away from Dort, start to veer towards Case and Wallace a little bit more, some of these other guys that they have. And so, and now Caruso feels like the guy that they can't, afford to get rid of. So, let's see
what happens with Case and Wallace and that extension. That's going to be really telling.
Really quick, top 50 free agents. You published this piece on Spotrac. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because we took a lot of time with the transaction.
I don't want to spend a ton of time on it either. It's not very good.
I got one name for you that I want to talk about. You had LeBron James at the top. We already talked about him. Jalen Duren, you have number 2, and it's being reported now that he plans to meet with the Lakers and the Kings. And there was one report, and I can't remember who reported this, but that he is actually very interested in playing for the Sacramento Kings. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, there's no way that's true, right? Like, come on. Who's interested in playing for the Sacramento Kings? So, to me, it screams leverage play, but I could be wrong, Keith.
I mean, it could be. There could also be the Pistons are actually not willing to give me even the lower max level amount of money, and the Kings are, and I would like to get that money. So I would be, because that was I think that came from the Athletic, who also said Domantas Sabonis is excited about the idea of joining the Detroit Pistons, and I love Detroit. It's one of my favorite cities, but I don't know, is Domantas Sabonis really excited to leave like the literal castle he lives in Napa Valley with his own vineyard to move to Detroit? I'm not so sure I agree with that. I mean, but I think we all know that's probably how that would have to go down if it did. So I think that's where we're at.
Russell Westbrook, you had it 30. Like, how many more teams can he play for?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how many has he played for already? We gotta start checking off the list. We're getting there with the oh my gosh, now he slipped my mind. Who was the guy just kept playing for every team?
Was it Campaign?
No, it wasn't Campaign. Who was? Yeah, Ish Smith. Yeah, we're in the Ish Smith stage for Russell Westbrook. Here's the thing: Russell Westbrook started most of the last season and was actually wasn't good, but he was still semi-productive. That's something. He's not getting more than a minimum deal anywhere, but as you start looking around, there's going to be teams that are going to be like, man, we have nothing at backup guard. Like, all right, we could do a whole lot worse than Russ, probably. Let's go. So it's
then you get the Tobias Funke meme. It didn't work for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's my thing. There's a whole bunch of guys I have listed behind him that I actually like better than Russ, but I stick to a very rigid all-star starter rotation fringe kind of in my rankings, and he was the lowest level starter left to rank, and I'm going to rank that ahead of a rotation guy.
Check out Keith's top 50 free agents list over on Spotrac. It's a great resource in addition to everything else that they have over there. The best trade machine on the internet, transaction logs that are worth bookmarking just to keep up with stuff. I certainly do it. Keith, I'll give you a quick chance to plug Sports Business Classroom. I know it's coming up here in Las Vegas. You guys do tremendous work. What are the updates on that?
Yeah, if you guys like the stuff we talked about here, and like I said, you like the ride and nerdy, come on out to Las Vegas with us for Sports Business Classroom. We've only got a handful of spots left for this summer session. We're getting down to it. I know it's only a couple weeks away, and you'll really plan this last minute, but you come out, you spend the week with us, and you're going to learn CBA, salary cap. You're going to learn scouting, video study, analytics study. I know that's a big part of what's going on in the conversation right now. Those guys are going to tell you why analytics are very, very important and why they're not the only part. That's why it's grouped in with scouting and video there. Media and broadcast team is going to come in and teach you about that. You pick a major if you want to, when you come in with us, do you want to work in a front office? Do you want to try to do what we do in the media? Do you want to be a scout or video or analytics guy, or do you want to be an agent? That's our other core there. We've got real life NBA agents running those sessions that are going to be teaching you. It all happens right in Thomas and Mack Center underneath the arena where everything is going on in there. You're right there in the mix. You'll be able to go in and watch games after. Our big fun project throughout the week is our mock trade deadline, which kicks off, and we have a blast with that at the end of the week. After you've learned a whole bunch of stuff, you apply it in a mock trade deadline setting, and it's great. So check it out, sportsbusinessclassroom.com. There are only a handful of spots remaining. We're almost completely full up for the summer, so check that out again, sportsbusinessclassroom.com. And if you're interested, I highly recommend you sign up, especially if you want to get into the world of basketball as a career.
Yeah, you mentioned that they do it under the Thomas and Mack Center. It's right by like the media room in that same kind of area where we're all kind of congregated. So I come across a bunch of people who have done this over the last few years when I'm there at Summer League, and I have never met anybody who has gone through this and said that they regretted it or even didn't have anything other than an amazing time and learned a ton. So I do highly recommend it. Thanks so much, Keith, for jumping on here. RealGM Radio with Wes Goldberg is part of the RealGM Radio Network. Check out Mo DeKeel and Jared Dubin on the Double Dribble every Monday and Wednesday. Then on Thursday, it's Good Take with me. And for this week, Dave DeFore from the Athletic NBA Show is going to be filling in for Mike. We're going to share our best NBA takes that we've cooked up this week. Stay tuned.